On this episode of Locked On Angels, we had real live baseball this weekend. The crack of the bat, the pop of the glove, some defensive errors, and really bad pitching. Angels baseball is back, Johnny. And you and I are going to recap both games from the weekend and check out some things that we noticed about the players and about the approach. Lots to talk about. It's time to get locked on with Mike and John, and this is Locked On Angels.
You are Locked On Angels, your daily Los Angeles Angels podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. You can find us anywhere you get your podcasts, including Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and SiriusXM by searching Locked On Angels. And if you'd like to give back to the Super Halo Bros for all the Super Halo content, here's some things that you can do. Leave us a rate and a review on Apple Podcasts. If you're watching on YouTube, hit that thumbs up button. And if you're not subscribed already, please subscribe and become a Locked On Everydayer. And whether you're watching or listening, come over to YouTube and leave a comment. It's one of the best ways to get in touch with us and be a part of the conversation. And today's episode of Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just download their app or head to their website, FanDuel.com, to get started.
Happy Monday to you, and thanks for being here for this episode of Locked On Angels, where it's your team every day. You've got the Frisch Brothers here with you, a.k.a. the Super Halo Bros. My name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Hey, we appreciate you being here 5 days a week as we talk Angels baseball Monday through Friday, so thanks for being an everydayer. We're starting our 4th season as the hosts of Locked On Angels. Man, time certainly flies by. We've watched a lot of Angels baseball together over the last 4 years, and some of it good, some of it really bad, and some of it, it is okay.
Yeah.
But we are happy to be talking Angels baseball, especially now because we've got some spring training games in the books. Mike, they played on Saturday and they played on Sunday. We're going to talk about each of those games and discuss our observations and what we noticed from those games, particular players that stood out for good or for bad. And we got a little look at the ABS system, the automated balls and strike system, because they were at a stadium on Sunday where they have that technology. So we'll talk about that in just a minute. But Mike, let's talk about that first game where the Angels won against the Mariners. Look, it's spring training, wins and losses, who cares?
Right.
But we did get a good look at some of the guys who are probably going to be everyday starters, and then a few that have a chance to make the team coming out of spring training. Let's talk about that lineup. Began with Taylor Ward. O'Hoppe was batting second. Mickey Moniak was batting third. Jorge Soler, our first look at him in an Angels uniform, batted fourth. Nolan Shonowell was fifth. J.D. Davis, who I was actually impressed with, got to bat sixth. Joe Adell, Tim Anderson was there as well, and then Kevin Newman as well. And then, of course, that they have replacements to come in the second half of the game. So we did see Bryce Teodosio come in for Ward, Chucky Robinson, and then Sebastian Rivero came in for O'Hoppe. Nico Cavadas, who we got to look at the end of last season, came in for Soler. Ryan Noda came in for Nolan Shonowell. Yomer Sanchez for J.D. Davis. Nelson Rada for Joe Adell. Christian Moore for Tim Anderson. And then Kyron Paris for Kevin Newman. Mike, why don't you talk about how this game broke down for us?
Yeah. Started off really great. Taylor Ward got a single, and then O'Hoppe doubled, and Taylor Ward scored. I loved O'Hoppe in the second hole. I know that that's not the plan.
I kind of like it, too.
Right? We're going to talk about the lineup strategy that Wash shared. We're going to talk about that tomorrow, but O'Hoppe in that 2-hole looked really good. And then with one out, Jorge Soler looked really good. He singled, and Logan O'Hoppe scored. Nolan Shonowell singled down the first baseline. Pitcher threw it past the first baseman, and so that allowed Soler to go to third, and Nolan went to second. And then another wild pitch allowed Soler to score, and it was 4-0 at that point. And at that point, I got a text from my brother John, who said, "I've seen enough. We're going to the playoffs."
Come on.
That was
didn't
funny.
Say that.
Come on.
Say that.
I'm going to pull it up right now.
That wasn't me.
But you were also in line with Locked On Hall of Famer Brent McGuire, who said, "I've seen enough. The Angels are winning 90-plus games this season." So I loved that after the first inning. But it was a exciting first inning to see the guys do what they haven't done in years past, and that's get a hit and then a hit again, and that phonetic hitting that the early 2000s Angels had that we haven't seen for probably the last 10, maybe 12 years, right?
I like that frenetic energy, baby.
Yes.
Yeah, and you know what I did enjoy was the fact that you saw O'Hoppe go the opposite way. I'm pretty sure Jorge Soler went the opposite way.
He did, yep.
As well. O'Hoppe looked really good at the plate, and we just got through talking about him on Thursday, and some of the adjustments that he's making, but also his prep as well. So,
Yeah.
man, I'd love to see Hoppy have a big season. So, yeah, they were up 4-0. And then Jack Kochanowicz came in and threw just 7 pitches in the first inning, to which I tweeted, pitch efficiency. My favorite thing in the world is pitch efficiency. So that was really great. But then he struggled in the second inning. He gave up a single, a walk, a sacrifice fly, an RBI single. But also, there was a lot of defensive miscues that we'll talk about. Taylor Ward getting blinded by the sun, and then nobody knows how to do a rundown on the team, apparently. So that was a little bit of a Mickey Mouse instance in that second inning. But here's what was encouraging, Mike, was the fact that Jack Kochanowicz struck out the side to get out of the inning, which there were plenty of balls in play that could have been outs.
Yeah.
And they just weren't because of one issue or another, errors. But Kochanowicz, we know, did not have a lot of strikeouts last year. In fact, that's one of the biggest dings against him, is the fact that his strikeout percentage is way low. I love strikeouts. I think they're great, but my man getting through the inning, first inning, 7 pitches, I'll take that every day, because too many guys throwing 23 pitches and trying to strike everybody out, and Kochanowicz is just being efficient up there. But I was encouraged to see that he struck out the side to get out of that inning.
Yeah, Caden Dana came in. He pitched in this game, gave up 3 hits, 3 runs, and 2 walks and 1 K. Just looked out of sorts. Looked like his mechanics were a bit off. And one thing that I'll address at the end of this segment is this idea of like, well, it's early, it's spring training. I want to address that statement because I think that there's some truth to that, but there's also some danger in that as well. So Garrett McDaniels came in this game. Remember, he was a Rule 5 draft pick from the Dodgers, got to stay on the roster. The Angels got to send him back. Johnny went a full inning and he struck out 1. I loved his windup, and then the way that the ball was being released, where his release point is what I'm trying to say, was a great release point. And it's hard to see and it's hard to hit.
Yeah. And he gets that leg up near his ears.
Yes.
Like, that was crazy to me.
Him being a tall left-handed pitcher and then coming around the way that he's coming around, his release point, his arm angle. John, I can't see the Angels not holding on to this guy. I know that he has to be on the roster and has to be in the majors this year. I can't see them sending him back, even if he has a really bad spring, just because of what I saw. That just glimpse of him made me go, ooh, wow, he's really intriguing. And I think he could bring a lot to the bullpen.
Yeah. If anything is going to play well, it's going to be somebody's pitching and their delivery and their ability to throw strikes, right? And so what we saw from him was facing some guys who are going to be in the Mariners lineup on opening day. And so that was interesting to see because, again, Mike, he's not pitched above, what is it, high A, I think, for the Dodgers. Yeah. He had a few innings, I think, above high A, but not very many. And so if you're going to take a gamble on somebody, it's going to be somebody like this who clearly has the stuff. Now, I think it's the mental hurdle of, hey, now you're going to face major league pitching. Yeah. So you got to be really deceptive up there if you want to have success in the majors. Yeah. Defense struggled. You mentioned that already. The Halos botched that rundown play in the second inning. It really just looked like they gave up. Shawna is running down to second base, and he obviously wasn't going to throw it. So they try to go to third, but then it was a situation where they throw it to the second baseman. Then it goes to the third baseman. Third baseman runs the runner back to second base with a runner already on the bag. So they just needed to tag somebody. And then when they did that, he threw the ball back. There was nobody covering behind the third baseman. So the runner then took third base. So it was just a silly kind of what the heck is happening sort of play, right? I think it all begins and ends with Kochanowicz. He got a late start off the mound. Yeah. And he's got to be in the driver's seat as the pitcher because you've got to cover where there's a need. And he got a late start. I don't think that he realized the situation until, it was happening. So that, I think, to me, I'm going to put that on Kochanowicz because it just felt like that moment. He totally missed the moment there. You got to be aware of it. Yep. Yeah, exactly. I think being a young guy like him, I think that situational awareness is something that comes with experience, and he just didn't take advantage of the situation. There was a similar rundown later in the game, and then the Angels did execute that one correctly, which was good to see. And then Joe Adell made a diving attempt in center field, couldn't reach the ball that Dunn hit in the 5th inning. And then Adell obviously played right field last year,
this spring, the Angels are trying to give him a chance in center field. And that one was one of the things that he had talked about, like knowing when the ball's going over his head or knowing when it's falling in front of him. And he's got to learn those depth metrics because right field, you're not seeing it come off the bat directly. Center field, you are. So spring training is a good time to get those things out of the system, right? So that he can be somebody that can be solid in center. John, my concern for Joe Adell is that he's going to have some of these bumps, not just in spring, but also at the beginning of the season. Mm-hmm. And then he seems to be somebody that can slowly figure it out because he did that in right field last year. But I don't know if the Angels have very much margin for him to figure that out. So hopeful that he can do that in spring training and get all the kinks out.
Was it just me or did he have cement shoes out there?
He did look like he's got bricks under there. Yes.
Yeah. So I don't know what's up with that. I don't know if he's just trying to take it easy in this first game or whatnot. And I understand because you don't want to, you had injury concerns at the end of last season. At the same time, you got to get a good jump. And traditionally he has gotten great jumps on fly balls. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. Again, game one. And these are the storylines that we're paying attention to throughout the course of spring training, how these things change from beginning to end.
Yeah, this game ended actually pretty great, John. Christian Moore had a huge fly ball to center field about the 420 mark, and then they caught it, right? That would have been out in a lot of stadiums, but did get a second at bat in the ninth inning. 2 outs. Nelson Rada comes up, lays down a beautiful bunt, and then Christian Moore hits a single, and then Kyron Paris comes up, already had an RBI single in this game, and then he got his second RBI single, and they tied the game, and then they threw the ball to second base to try to get him at second base, which then the ball got away, and then the Christian Moore came around and scored, and the Angels ended up winning the game. But what I loved, John, was the approach by each of those young guys. Mm-hmm. Nelson Rada laid down a perfect bunt with 2 outs, got on base, and then Christian Moore, nice single, and then there was Kyron Paris, who's changed his swing a bit, and he looks like he has more time to see where the ball is coming from and making a swing decision. And he looked really solid in that first game. It was great to see these young guys come through and win the game for the Halos.
Yeah, definitely. And then Tim Anderson, who didn't produce at the plate, but still has it. He was playing second base and he looked really good out there. There was a great moment where he's covering the bag. The ball goes right up the middle to him. And so he gloves it, touches second base, and then throws to first for a double play. That was really cool to see because, there was a stolen base attempt in motion. So he's going over to cover the bag, gets the ball hit right to him. And then just to have the know-how and the wherewithal to touch the bag and then be able to get that play off at first base, that was pretty great as well. We got to see a handful of pitchers in this one. Obviously, Kochanowicz got the start. We saw McDaniels. We saw Caden Dana. We saw Hayden Sieg, Victor Medeiros, Jack Dashwood, who they protected in Rule 5. Man, he was having a hard time in this game, but you can see why they want him there. 6'4", 220. He's got good stuff. And if he can just hone that in, I think that's going to be really exciting to watch. And then a handful of other arms as well got into this game. Some that we've talked about for a while, like Caminacci, Ryan Cosio, and guys like that. So all in all, obviously some bumps and bruises along the way, but these are the things that they're trying to iron out and figure out as they enter spring training. It was so good to watch baseball, especially with my son. I was holding him while we were watching the game. I've been looking forward to that since the day he was born. So we finally got to do that on Saturday. That was a lot of fun. Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Coming up, we're going to walk you through Sunday's game, what we noticed, have some discussion, and then we'll talk about the automated balls and strike system that the Angels got to make use of. Who made use of it, and how did it go? We'll talk about that coming right up.
Locked On Angels is brought to you by FanDuel, and you can get in on all of the NBA action right now with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. You can place live bets all throughout the game, and so if you even miss the opening tip-off or you want to bet on the fourth quarter, you can, because FanDuel makes that available. If you're looking for a bigger payout too, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Plus, app is really easy to use. I can use it, so you can use it. And when you win, you get paid instantly. And right now, if you're a new customer, FanDuel is giving $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit their website, FanDuel.com, to join today. Again, FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets. You can make every moment more with LeBron and with Luka and with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
This is the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. And we thank you for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. By the way, we're trying to get to 10K by opening day over on YouTube. I think we're about 8.5 thousand subscribers right now. And even if you're an audio listener, we'd love for you to come over to YouTube and hit that subscribe button, just because it helps put us in front of Angel fans who might not know about the show. In fact, we had a few comments from last week saying, I can't believe I just found you guys.
Yeah.
This is great. So we're so happy to have you along.
Welcome
for the ride that is Angels baseball in 2025. Mike, let's talk about Sunday's game against the Guardians. We got our first look at Kingery. Tim Anderson was in the lineup as well. Mickey Moniak is batting third again. Nico Cavadas batting cleanup. Matthew Lugo was in this game.
Yeah.
Ryan Noda got the start at first base. Chucky Robinson, who I'll talk about here in a little bit, was behind the dish. And then we had Yolmer Sanchez and Gustavo Campero in right field. And then, of course, we got to see Christian Moore later on, Denzer Guzman, Nelson Rada, Carter Kaiboom, Bryce Teodosio, JD Davis, and then a couple of catchers behind Chucky Robinson. Cole Fontenelle was able to get into this game. And then we had DeJesus for Campero in this one. Why don't you tell us how it started out?
Yeah, Angels scored again first in this game, Johnny, and Kingery got a hard hit. I think it was 106 off the bat. Hard hit double in the first inning.
He had both the balls he put in play. One was 104, and I think the next one was like 105 and a half, 106, like you were saying. But to see that double right out of the gate against a major league pitcher as well from the Guardians, that was encouraging to see.
Yeah, I said it last week, and I'm wondering if Kingery has the step up. Like I think he's one level ahead of like Tim Anderson and JD Davis. I feel like Kingery might be the guy, if they're going to keep anybody that is a non-rostered guy or a minor league guy. I think that Kingery could be that guy, depending on how his spring goes, because he does have a lot of potential, John, but doesn't have much history in MLB, at least at the major league level. And I wonder if they might want to do something with him and maybe build something with him. I know that they have veterans with Tim Anderson and with JD Davis, but this feels like a year where they would go more in the Kingery direction than the Tim Anderson direction.
Well, he fits Angels have a ton of first round guys on this roster, not including their own, like Mickey Moniak, right?
Yeah.
Not that he was drafted by the Angels, but he is a first round pick. By the way, did you see Will Wilson in the game for the Guardians over there?
I missed that.
Yeah, he was in this game. He apparently got swooped up by the Guardians during the Rule 5 from the Giants, so that was interesting. But yeah, Will Wilson, who was famously traded to salary dump by Billy Epler. Great pick, Billy.
Yeah.
But anyway, Scott Kingery, I think, could be somebody that kind of fits the mold of a young crew.
Yeah.
Somebody, but there's a couple guys like Tim Anderson and Kingery trying to work their way back and be something in the major leagues. But a good look for him to hit the ball hard, Mike.
Yep.
And that's all you can ask for, especially, like I said, against major league pitching. And Ben Lively. Ben Lively got the start. And of course, he's, in the Guardians rotation. And so that's an interesting aspect to all of this is things started out well for the Halos against a guy who's in the Guardians starting rotation. However, we had a guy start for us who's probably going to be in our starting rotation. I don't know. The more they talk about him, and I know that Terry Smith and Bobby Valentine were talking about it on the broadcast, that it doesn't seem like Detmers might be a sure thing in the rotation like we were all thinking he might be. And don't hear me say that that he should be a shoe-in, because you and I have been questioning, should he be an automatic yes for this rotation? It's hard to say, but the way he started out this game felt like kind of same old Detmers, right?
Yeah. 2 innings, 3 hits, 2 earned run, 1 K, 37 pitches through 2 innings.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, this is the guy that we've seen every year. This is the guy that shows up almost every start. Then there's that phenomenal start or that really good start that gives us a lot of hope. but this is the Detmers that we've seen pretty often over the last couple of years.
Yeah, there was something I was watching, and it was the fact that the Guardians had like 6 lefties in their lineup. And in that sense, Detmer should have the advantage. And there was a particular moment where he's trying to throw that slider away to where it drops out of the strike zone. And it didn't quite get all the way over. So it's on the edge of the zone, and it gets dinked in, dinky dude, right between second base and center field.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm like, okay, there's a dinky do. But at the same time, I really would like to have seen a lefty slider get a lefty out at the plate.
Yeah.
And you could tell he's still working on things. But from my vantage point, I don't know if he added anything new. I don't know. I mean, the fastball still kind of looks and feels the same. I mean, I don't know, man. I'm concerned, especially if they're banking on him being in this rotation. So again, you see him face these lefties, and on paper he should have the advantage. And of course, it's the first start, so he's working some things out. Maybe he doesn't have quite the feel for that slider yet, but that was one thing that jumped out to me, was the fact that that slider didn't go where he wanted it to go, and it cost him some runs at the end of the day.
Yeah, we have a segment on Detmers coming up this week, so that'll be a fun conversation to have, interesting conversation to have. Somebody else that has struggled, but we haven't seen him too often because of injuries, is Chase Silseth. He struggled in this game. He went a third of an inning, 4 runs, 2 hits, 2 walks. Then they took him out, brought another pitcher in just to get the last 2 outs. Then he came back in, and he was great. Got a clean inning and didn't have an issue, and that seems to be what the issue has been for Chase the last couple of years.
First pitch was a home run off of Silseth. And obviously, man, it just seemed like it rattled him, right?
Yeah.
Because then he couldn't locate anything. The defense behind him was struggling, and he had no command. And I do like that rule in spring training where you can take a guy out, bring them back in, because the purpose of all of this is to get guys ready. And so that was an interesting moment, I will say, because obviously he was struggling, had a chance to clear his head and come back out and then have a clean inning. So I don't know, jitters, that home run really rattled him. I'm not sure what that was about, but you're right. He hasn't been around. He struggled in AAA when he was coming back from injury. Maybe it just seems like he might need some more time. I don't think that he's going to be anyone that we're banking on, whether it's in the rotation or even the bullpen. I think that he starts the season in AAA most likely.
Yeah. A couple thoughts from the first 2 games, Johnny. First thought is Christian Moore really handles the bat well. I mean, that guy, I know yesterday's game, 14-1 in the 9th inning, and he was supposed to be the final out, and he tapped his head for the strike call. They called him out, and he was like, nope, that was a ball. And it was, and I love that. I love that competitiveness in Christian Moore. So handles the bat really well. Haven't seen a lot of pop except for that one fly ball. I know it's been 2 games, but I haven't seen a lot of pop yet, but he has been finding holes. And I love that he came through in the first game in the 9th inning. I love that. Here's my thought about what I said in the first segment. This idea of like, hey, it's, first 2 games and they're trying things out. I agree with that 100%. And I know that people are probably screaming at me in the comments, Mike, calm down. It's the first 2 games. It's spring training. It doesn't matter. They're just working things out. I get that. But that's been the narrative for the Halos for the last couple of years, especially during spring training, is they're working things out. But then nothing changes when they get to the regular season. And so, John, just from the first 2 games, what I saw was this. I saw Jack Kochanowicz improve, getting those 3 strikeouts, striking out the inning. I did see some of old Jack Kochanowicz from last year have a really good inning, and then he would have a moment where he would struggle, right? But he got through that. And I think, John, he should be the number 5 starter, and Reid Detmers should not be. Based off of just a small glimpse that we saw Reid Detmers do exactly what Reid Detmers has done every single year. And so I don't see any improvement from him. Again, we'll have another conversation about him this week. I see a lot of improvement from Kochanowicz. I would go with him at number 5. I think he's the lead horse in this right now. Yeah. And I don't think that there's anybody that is going to come up and pass him. And if there is anybody that passes him, it's not going to be Reid right now.
Right. Yeah. Well, we've got a month to play things out. And so we have a lot of baseball left to be played in spring training to figure things out. And to your point, you don't want to jump the gun and say like, I can't believe these guys, they lost 14-1 or whatever it was yesterday. At the same time, there are stories like, Carlos Estevez, right?
Yeah.
A couple of years ago coming in, Angels identified, hey, when you throw that fastball at the top of the zone, you get a lot of strikeouts.
Right.
And so they had him practicing that over and over and over again in spring, and he looked awful.
Yeah.
But by the time spring was over and the season started, that was a big weapon for him. So there's a delicate balance, Mike, between guys figuring things out and then coming in and looking the exact same, right? You see Kochanowicz kind of picked up where he left off at the end of last year.
Yeah.
And then you see Detmers picking up where he left off at the end of last year, kind of looking the same. So you really have to pay attention to what these guys are trying to do versus they are who they are, right? They are who they've always been. And that's my fear with Reid Detmers. As much as we talk about his stuff and his pitching and his pitches, it's good stuff. It's just the execution that doesn't, always connect with Reid Detmers. I really hope, and I'm looking forward to seeing some of these other starters in the rotation in spring training. And of course, we'll be talking a lot about that here on the show.
John, in Sunday's game, Ryan Noda was at the plate, and there were 2 back-to-back challenges that the catcher for the Guardians called, and then Noda called. He was going to strike out, then he ended up challenging it. He ended up drawing a walk. And so I love that. Now, it's only in 11 ballparks during spring right now. It's not in every ballpark, but baseball's trying out this challenge system, and each team is going to start with 2 challenges, and they're going to lose their challenge if the ump's call is confirmed. So it's similar to like what we already see in baseball, what we've seen in football as well. Only the batter, the pitcher, and the catcher can challenge the call. They're going to tap the top of their head. I love that. Just a real quick tap to indicate that they want to challenge. No additional challenges in extra innings, according to the rules right now. And then what they call the Hawkeye view is actually going to be where they show the review and let you know if the call stands or if the call is going to be changed. And I love, like, it shows where the ball is. A couple of challenges I saw over the weekend, like the ball just nicked the strike zone. And so the pitcher got it, which is what you want, right?
Yeah.
The system was used in the minor leagues last year, and the calls that were challenged by players were overturned about half of the time. So half of the time they were right, half of the time they were wrong. But John, I really like this. Now, it's not going to be used in the regular season. So that drives me nuts that they're trying it out, and then they tried it in minor leagues, and where they're going to roll this out in 2030, right? I don't know if they have to put something in the collective bargaining agreement, and I know that that's coming up in a couple of years, but I think it should be implemented sooner rather than later, because I love the fact that they could pause and then challenge it, tap their head. I still feel like, I know it's about 30 seconds to maybe 45 seconds. It still feels way too slow. Like
100%.
There should be a quick like tap, and then the ump goes, we're going to challenge it, and then a buzz, right, or a non-buzz, right? I think that seems to be the best way forward. Or if you want to even take it further, that an ump, when it is in the strike zone, an ump gets buzzed, and then they're calling the strike, right? I know maybe umps might not like that, but I think that's the challenge system that I think would work for this, because there have been so many calls that have just been terrible, especially with, past umpires who were just awful in their calling of balls and strikes. And so I like it. John, what are your thoughts about this strike system, the ABS system?
Yeah, for me, okay, so the first thing that drives me nuts about spring training is not every field has StatCast info. They don't have the radar guns and the cameras and all that stuff like all the major league clubs do. However, the stadium they played at yesterday does have that stuff. Therefore, that's why the ABS system can be put into place at the spring training stadiums. Having said that, it seems odd that this isn't something they would go ahead and do. It's odd that they're testing it out.
It seems simple, right? Yeah, seems very simple.
It's very easy to implement. And the fact is that they're trying it out at this level for the first time. I mean, it's fun for us fans, and it's interesting to see major leaguers get the chance to do it. At the same time, they've been doing this in the minor leagues, like you mentioned, and I'll have you know that it's way faster in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
Sometimes you see those replays and you see those moments where somebody does challenge. It's quick, and it's on to the next pitch. And so perhaps that's something that they're ironing out in terms of the timing of this stuff, because it was way too slow to watch yesterday, and it needs to be quick. So having said that, this is something that I do want to see, because I think it does add another element to the game that's been missing. And that's the ability for the pitcher and the hitter to have some, agency in their, in their at bat, in their outing on the mound, right?
Yeah.
and give them a chance to say, no, I got it. Or no, he didn't get it. Right.
Yeah.
And we saw that with Noda, right? He called that, knew it wasn't a ball. And you just reward hitters for having a good eye up there. And traditionally, Noda has had a good eye at the plate. I think somebody like Kochanowicz would benefit from it because he does have a good eye at the plate. Now, I know he would learn his lesson if he challenged,
Right.
because we've seen him not challenge, but argue balls and strikes, and it was a strike, dude. And so perhaps there's an opportunity for him to go, oh yeah, I was wrong. The other thing about it is we have seen so many terrible calls, and I know they stand out like a sore thumb because that's, you see something terrible happen and it messes up your entire game. Frustrating. But I'll say this, watching Shohei Ohtani bat from the left side, because he's so tall, he had the worst calls go against him. And the same thing could be said for Aaron Judge. These guys are so tall that their strike zones don't match what everybody else has.
Right.
And so to me, that's a little bit frustrating. There's not consistency, right? It's going to change with the height of somebody, but it's just, there's been a lack of consistency. There's been a lack of transparency. That's why I love looking at umpire scorecards the day after a game. They do such a great job. It's a great follow on Twitter. That automatically generates, how the umpire did calling balls and strikes. And sometimes you see the pattern of what their strike zone looks like. And it's like, somebody spill paint? Is that what happened?
Right.
And so that's always interesting to me. At the end of the day, I would love to see this implemented. I'm excited for it. It is a bummer that they're not going to do it this season, but perhaps there's a little bit of ironing out the kinks and trying to get it right. So we'll see what happens. Like you said, maybe it's something that needs to be in the CBA. I mean, they did put it in the pitch timer without anybody's, approval. They just went ahead and did it. So we'll see what happens, but I'm a fan. Sounds like you're a fan. We just need to pick it up a bit. Let's pick up the pace.
Hey, thanks for making Locked On Angels your first listen of the day. Now for your second listen, check out Locked On MLB with our friend Sully. You can find his show on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Hey, be sure you give us a follow on Twitter at Locked On Angels and at Super Halo Bros on Twitter and Instagram. Whether you're watching or listening, come on over to YouTube, hit that subscribe button, help us get to 10K by opening day. Mike, what do we have on deck for tomorrow's show?
Wash has given us a clue as to what his lineup will look like almost every day. And Johnny said something that I would disagree with, and I want to share that tomorrow on Locked On Angels.
All right. I love a disagreement. Let's go. All right, friends. We hope you'll come back and join us. Until then, my name is John, and that's my brother Mike.
And my name is Mike, and that's my brother John.
Thanks for being here with us, everybody, and we'll see you back here on Tuesday.
What did Augie think about Reid Detmers' start?
Oh, he made a big stinky. That's what he thought about it.